In today's video, we're checking out the CineTreak Cinelive C2S HDMI and SDI switcher, and it comes with this beautiful 5.5 inch display. Let's get into it. Welcome to the channel, folks. My name's Shane. In today's video, we're checking out the CineLive C2S live streaming and live switching solution. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I recently reviewed the Stream 1, which was a similar solution to this, but without the screen. And the first thing that I noticed having a screen built directly into the unit that's 5.5 inches and its color is that it's extremely easy to see. And I love the fact that the unit is slightly angled up like this, allowing you to really see the screen without any issues. So that's fantastic. Just note, this isn't a touchscreen display or anything like that, so if you're looking for a touchscreen solution, this won't be for you, but just having a multi-view or program output that you can decide on in the built-in monitor is invaluable. It saves you having to go out to external monitors. Now, speaking of which, I'm actually running external monitors right now. So I have two monitors set up here. One has my program output and one has my multi-view, and you can decide what you want these outputs to do. Just to let you know too, this also has USB out, so you can run it into OBS, you can run it into Ecamm Live or any other number of streaming solutions online, and it works with all of them. So that's great. This will be detected as a webcam, so you can run it into your favorite streaming software if you're using a laptop or computer system. Just to give you a quick heads up on my setup here, I'm running 3 S5 Mark II cameras here, 1, 2, and 3, and number 4 over here is running the NES Mini, which is a gaming console from back in the day, one of those small ones. It's super cool. Not only am I recording internally, so you can get a good sense of what the image quality is like recorded directly to the SD card slot on the back of this unit, but I'm also recording the multi-view, so when we dive through the menu, you'll be able to see exactly what's going on. This is a very intuitive switcher. If you've used anything from the likes of the ATEM stuff or the RGB Link or any of the other switches out there, you'll feel right at home on this. I gotta say though, compared to some of the RGB switches I've tested recently, not some of the older ones, but some of the recent ones, the screen on this is in a whole other dimension. So it's really good if you're looking for something that has, you know, real-time preview monitoring directly on the unit itself. This would be an absolute no-brainer. Now, if you're wondering about my audio, I'm running the Shure SM7B into my S5 Mark II X here, and then it's being captured into audio input number 1, and this is the sound of the audio being recorded directly to the SD card internally. Now, if you do see some of my cameras not matching what I'm doing when it comes to switching, it's because I'll be most likely using this camera view up here to showcase what's going on with the actual controls on the unit itself. Before we get into this video, a huge thank you to Jackson from CineTreak for sending this out. I really appreciate it. If you're thinking about getting a switcher, this really ticks a lot of boxes. There are a few things, like all switches, you need to know about this, but the functionality is killer, and if you're looking for something as an all-in-one solution, I can highly recommend this just based on my own user experience with it. But I'll link it down below if you want to check it out. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at the ports on the back of the unit here. So we've got 4 SDI inputs and 1 SDI output, and then we have 4 HDMI inputs and also 2 HDMI outputs, and you can configure the outputs to show whatever you want, which is awesome. This is one of the few units that actually has both SDI and HDMI inputs, and if you've got some devices that are using SDI and some with HDMI, you can of course combine them, but you can't use all of them. So 4 inputs, at least with the hardware options here, and then you've got an auxiliary input which you can use as well, but it gives you plenty of options. So if you are using like a mishmash of SDI and HDMI, it won't be a problem. On this side of the unit over here, we have 2 3.5mm microphone inputs and a headphone output. On this side of the unit over here, we've got our SD card input, and that's what I'm using to record right now, which is cool. We have a USB port on the back here, as well as a UVC port, which can be used to connect to the computer and have this detected as a webcam. We get a built-in Ethernet port over here and our power socket. One of the things I really like about this unit is once you plug it in, it won't just turn on automatically like some of the older switches. So we do get the ability to turn it on and off over here thanks to a power button on the top left-hand side. Let me give you a quick overview of some of the buttons and dials over here. So one of the great things about this unit is you can switch nice and fast using the top row. So this is your quick switching program option. So if I want to switch between 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's that quick, and that will go out to the program. The program is located on the right hand side over here. So whatever you see in that window is what's going out to your audience. Now the preview window is on this side over here. So if I want to say switch to number 3, I can then use this transition bar here to wipe between scene 2 and 3 and then back if I want to do it this way. But I love the fact that it's got quick switching, because quick switching for me is the way to go. I say that in every video, but I much prefer just being able to hit a button and have it switch without having to worry about using the transition bar. But everyone shoots in a different scenario, so it's up to you which way you want to work with this. The CineLive C2S will work with up to 4 pan-tilt zoom cameras, and you can fully control them using the joystick and the zoom controls over here. You can also access the host system here through the device's IP address. So if you're on a network using a browser, you can access this and control it remotely. All of these buttons are kind of like quick access buttons to some of the switch's features. For example, the logo button, we can just hit this and you can see that it's on screen right now. If I hit the on air button, it's going to be on the program output, and same for logo 2. And you can fully customize the position of this by going through the menu system, or of course add your own. This is one of the easiest units to get picture-in-picture working as well. So for example, if we're on this screen right here and I want to turn on picture-in-picture for number 1, you can see that in the preview window it's on the top left, but it hasn't gone out to my audience, and all I have to do here is tap on air, and there it is. So that's great. And of course, if you need a second one, you've also got a second option that you can add, and you can fully customize the position, size, scale, and all of that kind of stuff, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. This also does Chroma Key support thanks to the Chroma button over here, and we'll test that out using a green screen in just a bit. On this side of the switcher over here, we've got our record button, our stream button, and this will stream up to 2 destinations at the same time, which is great. You can see down on the bottom left-hand side over here, we've got our auxiliary channel playing, and this is just a video of the unit that's built into this. The cool thing about it is you can actually bring media in and then cycle through it, or if you've already recorded something, you can then play that back, which I think is really cool. Then when you want to actually add it into your scene, the auxiliary corresponds to this auxiliary button on this side. So it's that easy to get that channel involved in your stream. On the lower right hand side over here, we've got our fade to black button. So if you want to fade to black, you can. I'll show you an example of that right now. And there it is. It does exactly what it's supposed to. When it comes to the wipes and transitions, you can, of course, use this transition bar here, which allows you to transition between scene to scene or stop it in the center or whatever. But the auto button here allows you to do the same thing without having to use the bar. So I'm going to show you that right now. So just going between 2 and 1 by tapping the auto button on the unit, I can create that effect without having to use the bar. So for me, that's pretty much ideal. Or of course, if you prefer, you can just use the hard cuts just by tapping on the buttons. The CineLive C2S also supports downstreaming. So while it can stream up to 2 different networks at the same time, it also allows you to integrate videos from the web, for example, through this and then back to your audience. This is what downstreaming is. It's pretty cool. So if you've got an unencrypted video source, then you can restream that back up to the web. I think this is great if you plan on doing like a reaction channel or something like that. This will allow more functionality than a lot of the other more popular switches. When it comes to streaming availability, if you skipped ahead, this will work with Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Zoom, Twitch, Open Broadcaster software, or any custom RTMPs, which means that you can stream out to services that might not be as popular as some of the big ones out there, which is great. So it pretty much allows you to stream anywhere thanks to those custom RTMPs settings. The audio and video quality of this is excellent, and you're looking at a side-by-side comparison now between my S5 Mark II X and how the CineLive C2S records. Now, given that this is a 1080p recording with a H.264 codec, that means it's compatible with just about everything. You could drop some files on your phone, upload it to Instagram, or of course you could just put it into Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve and edit it after the fact as well. H.264 is still kind of like the standard for a lot of people. I like H.265, and that's what I'm recording with on my camera over here, but it is what it is. It's still a really great codec to work with, and the quality looks quite good to my eye. Over to the input and output frame rates and settings and compatibility, all that kind of stuff. So you can see right now I've got the Super Nintendo Mini plugged into this, which is actually running at 60p, but all of my cameras are set up at 25p, and my output recording is set to 25p. So the great thing with this is it will support all the standard frame rates for online streaming, so either true 30p or 60 frames per second, but it will also work with all of those NTSC and PAL frame rates as well. So it will do basically 23.98, 24, 25, 29.97, 30, 50, 59.94, and 60p. It also does 1080i as well, which is kind of cool at both 50 and 60 frames per second. The input resolutions is also where this really shines. So not only will it do everything that we just spoke about before, but you can see on screen that the first two multi-view options next to each other, so input 1 and input 2, are both running 4K at 25 frames per second, and these can handle up to 60p if you've got a 60p device. So if you can't downsample your device's HDMI to 1080p, it will still accept a 4K signal. Awesome. Let's take a look at the green screen option. So to get all of this to work, it's pretty simple. There's a chroma button over here and an on-air button. The on-air means that it's going out to your audience. If you don't want it on, you can turn it off. It's that simple. But through the menu system, which I'll show you in a moment, there's all of these different options, including color, similarity, smooth, and key source. The key source is which one you want the background removed from. In my case, being that I've got a green screen behind me, it's input number 1, which is input number 1 that you're looking at right now. So if I want to actually set this up and enable it, I'm going to hit number 4 back here, which will bring it into the preview. And now number 4 is playing behind me. And as I use the transition bar here, you can see that going out to my audience now, you can see the game footage behind me here on the green screen, and then I'm sitting here. Now you can see that my shirt is a little glitchy. Now what I would do is just go into some of these options here, similarity and smooth, and just toggle around with them. Now it looks much better. It was that simple to get it to look pretty much spot on to my eye looking at my reference monitor over here. And you can also add a mask and all that kind of stuff, but it's really simple to get a really convincing and great looking green screen effect. And you can of course use this with something else. So if you want to bring in the auxiliary and do the same thing, you can work with that as well. Let's quickly go through the menu and I'll show you how to configure a few different things here. So our menu button is here, and then we have this dial and button. So this turns left to right, and it's also a push button. So if we want to get into the transitions, we push it down and it brings up this menu. Then we can cycle through the menu on the left using the wheel. Then if we want to change the effect, for example, we can push this down and then select something else. So if we want to change the type of wipe or effect, we can select this one. And then when we use the bar here, you can see that it's going to change our transition. If you want to do those, I'm not going to go through all of them like I always do, but that's kind of how it works. These are basically the same types of transitions you find in every switcher. Now to go back to where we were, you can just hit the menu button here. One of the great things about the switcher is that it fully supports audio mixing, or you can have it just on a single channel or on multiple channels all at the same time, or have it follow the source that you're switching to. Now right now I've got the gaming footage in input number 2 and my main camera in input number 1, which is this microphone. So two separate sources, and you should be able to hear them both. Fingers crossed if everything works. I'm also now recording at the highest data available on this, so this will hopefully be the best quality you've seen from the switcher so far, but even on standard it looks pretty good. Now if we go into the audio options here from the main screen, so from this main screen we go into audio, you can see that the program mix is on. If that's off, you'll get no audio, so just make sure that that's on. The input number 1 is set to -3 dB, and it's also set to on. And input 2 is now set to -28 dB. Now if I wanted to change this and make it louder, I just have to select it and then use the little wheel to bring up the volume of the background music or the sound from the game, and then I can bring it down the other way if it's too loud. So you can make your mind up what sounds great to you and for your particular stream. But the cool thing about this is if you're a gamer or a podcaster with multiple channels of audio, you can mix them, record directly to this, edit it later, and you're in business. As you can see on screen here, we've got all of our different audio options here. There's plenty of different inputs and options here. Now, if you're using, say, the microphone input on the back, then you can also set up a delay, because the analog input sources will be slightly ahead of the HDMI signal. And this is normal. All switches are like this, but it means you're going to have to set a delay up if you're using an external microphone, maybe a wireless pack plugged into this or whatever. Then you're going to have to set it up and sync it ahead of going live. Otherwise, your audio and video are going to look out of sync. But if you're running a microphone like this into a camera, then it's all going to be in sync perfectly. Under the image option here, you've got a whole bunch of different backgrounds that you can use, and also other images that you can overlay. If you want to import your own logo, you can do that as well. You can see all the different ones they've got built into this already. And then you can change the size and position of the logos in the space of the screen. I'll show you that quickly. So let's turn on, say, logo number 1 here. We'll put it on screen here. If we want to change the actual position, actually let's make it larger as well. Why not? Let's do it all. Let's change this to 1.4. So then now it's larger, right? We go back into the menu here, go to position. We can then use the joystick to position it wherever we like. This is one of the coolest things about this unit. It's so easy to move things around and work with images. You can just use the joystick. I think this is genius. It saves you having to menu dive or set up an XY axis manually. This is just way easier. Our media pool is basically everything that we've got on here already. So you can see that the local playback is set to the demo, which is the auxiliary option down on the lower right hand side. Now, being that I'm recording, I can't actually show you my SD card option, but you can select that from the SD card option there. We also have our pull stream option here, which allows you to pull video from somewhere else and then stream it up to your audience, and you can find those options in here. Let's take a look at the recording options built into this. So you've got different bit rates you can select. What you're looking at is the standard one. We've got our frame rate, which I've set to 60 instead of 25. I can't believe I did that. So if the frame rate of the recording looks a little jittery, that's what's going on. We've got our format option and also where we want to record, where it says SD first. And when it comes to pushing the stream, which means streaming out to the web, you can see that we've got our bitrate options, frame rate options, stream 1 and stream 2 settings. Whether you want to stream to both services or just one, you can set that up in this menu. The pull stream functionality allows you to bring video into the switcher and then out to your audience as well, and you can set that up from this system area right here. Our picture-in-picture option is located on the right-hand side over here, and this allows you to change the source, size, position, all that kind of stuff, and you can also add a picture-in-picture border. The switcher supports Lumakey, which allows you to select a color, for example, to make transparent, and you can find those settings in there. And Chromakey is what I already showed you before with the green screen effect, and it works quite well. Let's take a look at the port option, which is essentially what the output ports do on this unit. So you can set it up for both horizontal or vertical work in the view option here. The output source allows you to change what is going out to a different source. So whether that's your program, preview, multi-view, whatever. And this is awesome. It allows you full customizability. Is that a word? Yeah, you can fully customize this anyway. So another cool thing is you can also set up basically a dedicated input out. So if you just want to monitor one input the entire time for some reason, you can do that as well. If we hit the menu button and go back over here, we've got our output format, and this is our frame rate going out. So we've got 24, 25, 30, 48, 50, and all those other ones. Now, being that I'm recording, I can't scroll down, but you can see basically everything that's on screen right there is your options that are available. And when it comes to the input priority, it's set to SDI first. So the SDI by default are the ones that will work, but if you're not plugged into those, then it will automatically look for the HDMIs. And once it's all hooked up like this, you don't have to worry about it. Unless you need to change this setting, I would just leave it as is. I love the fact, much like the prior switcher I reviewed, that you can store user settings. So if I've got this set up for gaming, I can create a preset, recall it, and then everything's back to where it was. It's awesome. If I'm using it for live streaming on my other YouTube channel, I might just want a multi-camera setup where I only want one microphone on the entire time, so I can create a preset based on that scenario with all the picture-in-picture saved and all that kind of stuff, and it's going to recall them. I really like this option, and you can store a whole bunch of different ones in this option right here. From the settings on screen, you can see we've got our language option, our fan options, backlight, and date time, all that kind of thing. And I've set the fan to on. By default, it's set to auto, but I've left it on because it's 34 degrees Celsius outside today, so that's like 90 or something. It's pretty hot, and I can actually feel this getting quite warm on the desk. And being that this is sort of like a fabric I've got on the desk here, or this rubber mat thing, I wanted to make sure that it was going to be okay. And I can't even hear the fan, which is awesome. I do have a fan on over here in the room, but I can't actually hear the fan on this thing. There is ventilation on the side, so yeah, I just prefer to leave it on with this, but you can leave it set to auto if you need to. Through the network settings here, we've got our DHCP option, which allows the unit to be found automatically on the network if you just plug it into a home router. You can calibrate the joystick here, and you can also check your firmware version from this menu option on screen. Let's wrap this up. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the CineTreak Cinelive C2S. And this comes from experience using ATEM Mini, ATEM Mini Pro. Most of the RGB link stuff I've tested out, switches from OC and a whole bunch of other companies. This is right up there with the best of the best. Right up there with the OC all-in-one live streaming briefcase solution that I reviewed recently. This thing's killer, and it basically gives you the same functionality. We've got all the SDI inputs, all the HDMI inputs, built-in recording that actually has the correct frame rate recorded, which I absolutely love. And it's very easy to use. You've got quick switching functionality. It works with PTZ cameras if you want to use that. The transition bar is optional. Yes, for me that's great. And the green screen was like the easiest I've ever set up. It was so easy. Now, it's probably easy because I reviewed the version of this without the screen that I also found very easy to set up. But I already knew the menu system and all that with this. And once you get used to the navigation, having a screen like this, a 5.5-inch screen is killer. Maybe the only nitpick here is that it's not a touch screen, but I didn't feel like I missed it. You know, there's no fingerprints on there or anything like that. It just worked. The fan is silent. It can handle basically every different frame rate. You can change the outputs. I have no real complaints with this other than the fact if you're looking for a touchscreen solution, this might not be for you. And of course that the output still isn't 4K, but for most streaming setups and all that kind of thing, I'm happy with this. The 1080p recording I think looks great, so you can be the judge what you think for yourself. But yeah, man, what a really impressive unit. If you're looking for an all-in-one solution that will cut down the need for external monitors and all that kind of stuff, but with the option to use them if you choose to, this is by far the best all-in-one unit I've seen with a screen built into it. It's a pleasure to use. There's no weird bugs or anything when you're cutting between scenes like I found on other units from other brands. This just works. So yeah, if you want to check it out, I'll link it below. Thanks for watching. Leave a thumbs up if you can, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.